Please go ahead, sir. Go ahead your presentation, brief presentation.
I think before I take over, just allow me to introduce myself. I'm a co-founder at Factory.io, and we are here to participate with you all in a discussion. And primarily, we thought that we had developed a digital strategy for increasing manufacturing throughput, which we have run through one of our participants sitting here, Raghu, already. And then you will see on your screen Urvesh Goyal. He is a co-founder at Factory.io. And he is the person who actually got the digital into manufacturing with me. So I have been a manufacturing man throughout. However, when I met, pardon?
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I've been a manufacturing man throughout, and having met Urvesh, we were able to actually dovetail how digital should be brought into manufacturing. And today we intend to present that strategy to you and take your valuable inputs and probably gaps and future steps and things like that. So allow me to hand over the mic to Urvesh, who will introduce himself now. Urvesh.
Thank you, Shishir. Thank you so much. Raju, that's so nice of you to have invited me and Shishir. Appreciate it. I guess Shishir and I seem to be doing some things right. To have been able to impress you well enough to have found a place in today's call. Thanks much.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Sorry?
Ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
Gentlemen, as Shishir mentioned, we started on this journey a few months back. I started maybe much longer in trying to identify what we can do to manufacturing. And to just share with you my own journey, I have been an entrepreneur since 2007. My first venture was an e-commerce venture. We and Flipkart started at the same time. All of you have heard of Flipkart. And I am already on to my next venture because we lost the ground to Flipkart in the first round. Okay. So what best do you do when you get defeated? You come back with a vengeance. And so this time, when I was looking at what is the next big thing for the next 10 years, I found that the next big thing for the next 10 years would be manufacturing. And that we found that there is a huge gap. Manufacturing by and large is very traditional. There has been a lot of work that all of you have been doing in manufacturing for the last so many years. I met with Shishir and I found that Shishir has been trying to transform manufacturing for the last 20 years out of the 27 years that he has been in manufacturing. And with all due apologies to Shishir and to all of you, we figured out that manufacturing is still where it is. We have been beaten down by China. We are now getting beaten down by Bangladesh. In terms of growth, Bangladesh is growing faster than India is. If I go back to my original profession, which is IT, we find that India is being beaten down by Philippines in IT. India is also being beaten down in IT by China, Korea. So in any field that we look at, be it IT, be it manufacturing, we are being beaten down by smaller countries, and China being a large country. So that's where we figured out, me and Shishir, that let's give it a shot and see if we can come out with something which can transform Indian manufacturing. So gentlemen, that's where we are. And as Raju wants us to do, we will present to you quickly what Shishir and together with him I have to say about digitalizing manufacturing. Now, Raju, you will excuse me for my handicap in using Zoom. This is the first time I'll be using. We usually use Hangout Meet, Google Meet.
Go to main screen. You can use the option called share option. You click on the share option.
Well, that is the challenge. Where do I go for the main screen?
Yeah, you just
At the bottom of the screen, you have got share function, green color.
Bring the cursor down to
the
lower bottom.
Bottom, yeah, there you can get like video related and audio related, and then
A ribbon will open at the bottom.
yeah. Can you see that bottom?
Shishir, can you present it? I'll speak, but can you bring it up?
I'll just bring it up. Just
share
give me,
option is there.
just give me a second.
Share option. You click on that.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Yes, share screen. Now I am able to do that. I go to Google Drive.
yeah, you click on your PPT and it will be shared. Can you able to share? Can you see the?
I was able to do that.
Okay.
And then
it will come. It will come. It takes 1 or 2 minutes.
So I'm trying to present it from. Can you see this now?
Not yet.
Not yet. You need to just 1 minute. You who is presenting?
Urvesh.
Urvesh.
Urvesh. Okay, just 1 minute. So you can now share. Can you go and share?
I have already shared.
No, try again. Do it again.
Try again now.
Try again. I made you host. So
Okay. Okay.
I want to share the thing.
Okay. Give me a second.
Yeah. You click on share option. You go to share option.
Yeah, it is doing that. Okay.
Click on share and go to that file. Open that PPT.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So okay, you try, Mr. Shishir. Can you try? I will. If it is a problem their side.
Let me try.
Share screen. Can you see the share screen?
Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay, Urvesh, when you say, then I'll go.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Raju, in the meantime, we can introduce the other people who have joined.
Yeah. I will introduce. Just 1 minute. I'm just trying to see who are there. There are a lot of people. Suddenly they come. I don't know how many. Okay, our colleagues are there. IPQC colleagues. Professor Rangarao from Hyderabad, and Mr. Mullai from Bangalore is actually analytics expert, and Mr. Sridhar is lean and the quality expert from Bangalore, and Mr. Mrudul Agarwal is from Bangalore. He is a CA and tax consultant, tax expert, and Dr. Sundar Raman from Chennai is a design thinking expert. He recently joined. We are inviting him for the first time.
Okay.
So probably professor can briefly, give introduction to the members after this presentation. And other members, Raghu sir, and Dr. Rajiv from Delhi is joining. He is also a part of IPQC, and he is a chartered accountant, and he is a expert in working capital, SME working capital related issues. And this is the brief profile of thing. There are many people are going to join. There is one more presentation we lined up. Actually, there is a team on thermal sensors, group of youngsters presenting that.
Okay.
Dhruv is joining from Pune,
Okay.
and he is presenting his idea, thermosensors for COVID patients detection. So this is his idea. He developed a prototype. He just want a presentation to the members. This is a brief profile of the people on the on the meeting. So you can proceed.
Can you see my screen now?
No.
Still we are not getting. I will show you how it looks like. Just 1 minute. Suppose if I want to share something, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Like this, you can share your screen. I'm just. Okay, now you can try if you are having a problem. You can, if it is PPT, you send me in WhatsApp. I will share you. Otherwise, you explore the bottom row. There is a Zoom panel comes, and that there is a share option. Green button comes. Green share screen.
Yes, I see that.
You click on that. You click on that. You click on that. Go to your PPT. Go to your. It opens up your Windows. Once you click on that,
First open PPT on your computer, then share screen.
go to that specific PPT and select that. That's all you need to do. You are able to see the share screen option.
Yes, I am able to see that, sir. Yes.
You click on that first, and your PPT is opened already.
Yes, it is open.
Okay. So when you click on share screen, it opens all the options there where you select the PPT.
Yeah,
Now
now we can see.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank
Go
you, sir.
ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for your patience and guiding me through. Thank you so much.
No problem. Because only once you need to do. After that, it becomes much easier.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, gentlemen. So what we are saying is that digital is already creeping into our walk of life, in every walk of life. If we look at retail, we see Amazon and Flipkart have replaced Future Group. Almost all of you would have read this statement from Mr. Kishore Biani a few years back, that e-commerce does not have a future in India. Now, last year, Mr. Kishore Biani went ahead and picked up $2 million from Amazon.
Yeah.
During these difficult times, Mr. Kishore Biani has again gone back to Amazon to help him out.
Yeah.
While Amazon has announced hiring 1 lakh new employees in the next 1 year.
Yes.
If we look at passenger transport, Ola and Uber have replaced the traditional black and yellow cabs.
Yeah.
So what is it that we are witnessing around us? What we are seeing is that digital technology adoption is at the heart of competitiveness, lowering cost basis and improving operational efficiency, demanding greater integration with customers and suppliers. Now, I'm sure all of us here have experienced one way or the other, either directly or through one of our family members, Amazon or Flipkart. We all know that they have definitely lowered the cost basis. We have all experienced that they have operational efficiencies compared to the brick and mortar stores. And we have witnessed how they have successfully driven integration between the consumers and the sellers.
Yeah.
If we look at Ola and Uber, we have, again, I'm sure many of us would, or almost all of us would have experienced Ola or Uber one time or the other. And I'm sure we would have also had experience with cab drivers before Ola and Uber came.
Yeah.
Needless to emphasize that their costs are very rational. They have, I mean, compared to if we don't go back too far with the old cabbies, if we will go with only Meru, compared to Meru, Ola and Uber are much more cost effective. They are much more efficient. I don't know about you guys, but from the airport, I have stopped taking a Meru. I usually go for a Uber or a Ola. They have driven much greater integration between passengers and the cab drivers. And it will be important, it will be relevant to emphasize here that Ola and Uber do not manufacture cars. They do not even own a single cab. They don't put petrol in these cabs, and they do not provide any repair service for these cabs. And by the way, they also do not claim to have any expertise in driving these cabs. So anything to do with cars or automobiles, Uber and Ola have no expertise whatsoever. Despite that, they are the largest cab service in the country. With this said, if digital is all over the place, how can manufacturing be far behind? Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution is already increasing manufacturing throughput by enhancing resource utilization and reducing product defects. As harsh as this statement might seem, but nevertheless, we'll say it, that traditional manufacturing requires a lot of time, effort, manual work, and waste. Shishir did want me to dilute this statement because this seems very negative. And we decided to retain this the way it is. Industry 4.0 and Industrial Internet of Things are changing how manufacturers produce, where new processes are made possible using qualitative and quantitative data available with these technologies. I mean, nothing that I said here is something that you guys don't already know. We still say it to set the context of what we are about to present. And this is what we want to present here. Can you see these blue boxes here?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we can see.
Yeah, 10 of them. Now, typically and traditionally, we have been used to defining the strategy in a statement. And the more modern, more later management thinkers say that strategy cannot be presented in a statement. It has to be much more detailed. So this is what we call the digital strategy to increase manufacturing throughput. And if you are already reading it, in any of the 10 boxes there, and in any of the 20 statements, 2 statements per box, you do not see a single word that alludes to digital. So I'll address that in a while from now. Give me a few minutes to come back to that point. This is about increasing manufacturing throughput. So what is so unique about it? I mean, you can always increase your manufacturing throughput by putting up a new factory or by adding new machines, right? So one of the basic assumptions here is no new capex required. So what we are talking about, the basic assumptions for this strategy is no new capex for increasing your manufacturing capacity. So we continue with the current capacity. no need for any new working capital, and no increase in operating expense. So how do we increase manufacturing throughput without any expense, without any new operating expense, without no increase in capacity by using capex, and no increase in working capital? If we can pull off this increase in manufacturing throughput, does anybody have any doubt that this will create long-term shareholder value?
No doubt.
Thank you, sir. Now, if we have to pull off this magic or this unusual stuff, it has to be a little more detailed, right? So we split the whole strategy into 4 pieces. The financial perspective. If you need to be rich, you need to take care of your customers. So we have the customer strategy. If you need to take care of your customers, you need to have robust internal processes. And we all know that processes cannot sustain them unless you have a strong organizational capability. This is how we split these 10 into these 4 perspectives. Those of you who are aware of the balanced scorecard method.
Pablo.
Sorry?
Yeah, no problem. I think there is some disturbance.
Okay.
Okay. Please.
So those of you who have heard or read the balanced scorecard, this is what we did. We merged the gold red, TOC, S&T, strategy and tactics, and balanced scorecard, and created this model.
Kaplan, correct? Professor.
Sorry?
Kaplan, professor, Harvard professor, correct?
That is, balanced scorecard is from Norton and Kaplan, from Harvard. You got it right,
yeah, okay.
Rajiv. That is from Harvard, but the guys were Norton and Kaplan.
Okay.
So they created this balanced scorecard system of 4 perspectives.
Okay.
And Gold Red created the strategy and tactics tree. And we merged the 2 because we thought that if we merged the Gold Red methodology with the balanced scorecard system, we come up with a very forceful, very unique strategy map.
Okay.
And so this is the framework in front of you. So we talk about increasing manufacturing throughput to create long-term shareholder value. It is very intuitive. If you need to create long-term shareholder value, you need to improve cost structures, yes. And at the same time, you enhance revenue opportunities. Very intuitive. If you take care of your cost structures and if you enhance your revenue opportunities, you automatically create long-term shareholder value. Anybody can tell you that. Or nobody needs to tell you that, in fact.
Yeah.
So what we found, what Shishir emphasized is if we reduce WIP inventory in a manufacturing environment, you would be reducing those 7 wastes, what he fondly calls the Muda wastes. And they all in one way or the other roll up into the WIP inventory, increase in WIP inventory. So if you start working towards reducing the WIP inventory, you will eventually take care of all the 7 wastes. Shishir, would you like to talk about it?
Yes, I think we could take it when we answer, but let me explain slightly more in detail because Urvesh, I thought you were in a flow, so it was going nice. But what Urvesh essentially is saying that many people would look at WIP as inventory, in the sense inventory calculation, right? But we all know that when we talk about the 7 ways of lean, the overproduction is scored or measured in quantity. Waiting time is in time. Okay, and motion is again in numbers or extra time. However, we all have learned that when all these 7 ways are interactively in play, the most significant thing that we see on the shop floor is WIP. And the idea is to constantly keep reducing WIP. Now, if WIP is not going down, one of the 7 muda is misbehaving. So instead of splitting it down, this reduction in WIP will constantly keep us in a focus mode and keep directing towards which part of muda now is actively in play. And we all know that when we remove this WIP, as I'm talking about, we also remove waste, and waste is what we mean by cost structures getting aligned properly. Okay. Now, this also can be summarized in one line where we say that the total throughput time has only 10% of its share in touch time. In other words, 90% of the throughput time is waste. Now, this is also a study which has resulted from understanding the muda on the shop floor. So when we are saying reduce WIP, we are asking you to attack the waste of muda on the shop floor. Yes, Umesh.
Thank you, Shishir. Thank you so much. We move to enhance revenue opportunities in the manufacturing environment. We are suggesting to improve overall plant effectiveness, overall production effectiveness. I'm sure all of you have heard about OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. And coming from TOC, Shishir emphasizes to take a systemic view, a holistic systemic view, and strike at the constraint rather than getting bogged down into the details of OEE of each machine. It will be in place to give other statistics thrown out by Cisco. They have put out a number that the global average utilization of equipment is 25.7%. This means that more than 74% of the time, machines globally are not producing anything. And that goes back into our basic assumption that there is no need for any capex to increase the throughput.
This number is from one country or average across the world?
This is a global average, Raj.
Okay, what about Japanese phones?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I just took this number.
Because all these things we are trying to improve using Japanese lean concepts, probably their numbers will be different.
Sure.
Yeah. One way we also believe that this number which is arriving
half an hour
is an average. So naturally there could be a range. We don't know about the range. However, this number is also probably derived from time availability of a machine. So in case we are minusing holidays or Sundays or downtimes, that is what is left of the utilization.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving over to the customer perspective. I mean, when we present this to manufacturers quite often, and more so nowadays, people have to say, Urvesh, market is a constraint. So why do I need to improve my plant effectiveness when there is just not enough orders? And that's where we put up these 3 recommendations that manufacturers need to work towards their competitiveness, and we'll come to that in a minute. They need to provide unparalleled customer experience, and they need to develop customer loyalty. If they do all these 3 together effectively, they should be able to elevate or break down the market constraint. So let's take one by one. Improve competitiveness. We talk about reduce order to delivery time. Shishir mentioned this in the context of WIP inventory, that 90% of the time is non-productive time. Now, currently, whoever we have talked to, the manufacturers, they talk about in weeks. their current throughput time runs in 4 weeks. Somebody talks about 3 weeks. Somebody talks about 6 weeks. So if the throughput time is running in weeks, and then so we have witnessed, me and Shishir have witnessed this discussion between the sales guys and the production guys, where the sales guy says, oh, I have orders, but my production, and they are saying it in front of the production head, but my production cannot deliver in 2 days' time. And that's why we lose so many orders. And the production guy is saying, well, we don't have enough orders. So how can we improve the OPE? So theoretically speaking, and I'm saying theoretically because we will have to get down further deep into stuff before we can see the practical side of it. But for now, theoretically speaking, if we can change from weeks to a few days, not 10 days, but 2 days, 3 days, 1 day, by reducing the order to delivery time, we would have improved considerably the competitiveness. There was an automotive company that we were talking to, and he said, Uvesh, you don't understand. Even our customers like Mahindra or even Maruti for that matter, they don't know what they want. So what can we do? They come at, do you think that if Maruti will come at the last moment that they want these shift gears to be delivered to them in another 2 days, I will not change the batch? Obviously, I'll change the batch, stop the current batch because Maruti is the most important client that I have, and I'll serve them. Mahindra came to me because I had Maruti, not the other way about. Okay. So what I and Shishir say all the time is, guys, this is not an aberration. There is a name for this. The name for this is VUCA. We all live for many, many years. This is not a new term. This term has been around for decades now, at least 20, if not more. And VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, needless to say that given the coronavirus state that we are in, going forward is going to be even more VUCA.
That is a surprise.
Uncertainty peaked.
Nobody predicted. Nobody, not even analytics. Forget about analytics.
Correct.
Nobody forecasted this. Entire world is totally blank about
Correct.
predicting this. Yeah.
And Raju, this is exactly what we are saying, that we need to get away from the business of forecasting into being efficient and effective.
Yeah.
So if we were to, instead of trying to beat VUCA by being babas of forecasting, so if you allow me to use a little colloquial language in this professional discussion, if we can move away from babagiri of forecasting to managing, and here again coming to reduce order to delivery time. So get away from forecasting because we were always in the VUCA world. That's the point I'm trying to emphasize here. It's just that Corona has created more of VUCA.
Yeah.
But it is not that before Corona we did not have VUCA.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that perspective, we need to reduce order to delivery time to deal with the VUCA even going forward. Now coming to providing unparalleled customer experience. Now, this is going to happen even more now. The supply chain will be disrupted. And I'll let Shishir explain this better. Shishir, go ahead. Can you please, OTEF?
The two aspects of delivery. One parameter is called the quantity and the other parameter is called date. Now, till now, what we have seen is that sometimes we lose some quantity because we have to supply on the date, and other way around. Sometimes they say, you give me 2 more days and I can give you the full quantity. These have been the negotiations. But what actually customer needs often is what he has asked for, full quantity, and the date he wants. So till now, what we have seen is most of the people use a figure called on-time delivery. In fact, when we're looking at supplier evaluation, we also say, okay, was my delivery on time or not? And most of the people get full marks on it. Okay, firstly, they say, yes, I delivered on time the quantity that you asked for. It may happen that we renegotiated the time of delivery, but we still delivered the quantity at the renegotiated acceptable time. Now, this causes many aberrations to the customer service levels. So what we are saying is, if you miss quantity and you get the date correct, your score is still 0. And if you miss the date and get the quantity right, still your score is 0. Not the other way around, when we were in other times saying that if 95% of my order quantity was on time, we called it 95% delivery. Now, this is in many ways what we are saying is a good measurement of understanding how much the customer likes you. Now, we are not saying that your OTIF should be 100%, but if it fits between 95% to 100%, we know that the customer satisfaction is very high. However, if it goes to 50s level, we know that the customer is not going to be very happy. So OTIF is a big departure from the old on-time delivery as measured earlier. Now, why we are putting it there? It is an interface between your company operation and the customer's operation that we are trying to manage. Now, if your OTIF is very good, in very simple words, all your operations are synchronized properly. If they are not, your OTIF will go down, and when OTIF goes down, internally also your cost is now not under control. So OTIF is a good measure of understanding how well you have satisfied your customer.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you, Shish. Thank you so much.
So
And we
very
now-
good concept. That's an OTIF is very good.
Thank you.
We now come to the third parameter for the customer strategy, and that is develop customer loyalty. Let me share what we heard from Delphi Automotive. What their customer has done is they have put a third-party tester to test their finished goods. So Delphi does their raw material testing. When they come in from their suppliers, then Delphi has a good, they believe that it is good, inline testing process. And then Delphi also does FG testing, finished goods testing. But their customer does not trust them. So what the customer did is, on top of whatever Delphi does, they went and hired a third-party testing company, and now they are testing. They are sitting in their premises in Delphi and testing their FG. Guess what they do? Those people invariably reject 10 to 15% of the finished goods. Needless to emphasize that this is an ongoing recurring cost for Delphi now. Now, where did Delphi, in our opinion, go wrong? Or what is the gap between Delphi and their customer? They are missing the customer loyalty. They do not have the trust of the customer. And what is Delphi missing? They have not been able to demonstrate the reliability of their manufacturing process. And this brings me to the left side of the page, product quality genealogy. What manufacturers need to do is create a continuous process of plan, do, check, act through the manufacturing process. They need to align as planned with as built in continuous iterative process. Now just imagine if they can do this, if Delphi could do this and give visibility of their manufacturing process to their customer, they would be saving that 10 to 15% rejects from every batch. How about going further? And this will be more relevant. This is relevant for a discrete, but even more relevant for FDA. companies, pharmaceuticals and food. Batches of raw materials are automatically registered to production order for traceability. I mean, this applies to even automotive. We were talking to another company in Pune, which also sells plastic parts to automotive industry. And their emphasis was that, yes, we have to provide this traceability for anything that goes wrong in the field. So traceability is a requirement in not only uh, in pharma and food, but as well in automotive. And what if these guys can create a very visible structure not a structure, a very visible manufacturing process, and make it transparent to their manufacturers, I mean, to their customers. They will be able to develop customer loyalty. Primarily so because not many people are doing it at the moment.
Yeah.
Right, Urvesh, I'd like to speak something here.
Sure, please go ahead.
How does the current manufacturer prove itself to the customer? Very often we have heard of audits. When the buyer comes to the company, what do they check? They check the documents, they check the historic data collection and some analysis. It is historic. And based on that, or what we call the quality management system audit is being done. They can even go to the, let's say, the standards room and check the standards and calibration, etc., etc. So what the customer is constantly trying to do is come back to the supplier and check whether the laid down processes as per the ISO or whatever may be the standard, is the company following it or not. Now just imagine if the customer wants to know how they are working now, they get a visibility onto the shop floor, and the genealogy tells them this is how the product has been moving through the day. Okay, so one doesn't have to go visit, check physically. You can log in anytime and see how the shop floor is behaving, not only for yourself, but generally. Usually one customer or one manufacturer supplies to 3 or 4 customers. So many times the customer has got a view to their product and processes only. But when they visit the factory, they get to see the overall function. So this is what we are saying. If the manufacturer is able to make it visible to the customer to come in and check how the shop floor has been working, it would actually bring up the trust of the customer in a big way. And we are saying that you can drill down to the last consumption of the raw material and find out at every stage what happened to your product. Yes, Ramesh.
Thank you, Shishir. Thank you so much. Now, gentlemen, if you look at these 4 blue boxes below and the mishmash of all the arrows there, this signifies that there is a circular dependency amongst themselves. So let me start with increase inventory turns. Now, if you increase inventory turns and if you look at reduce order to delivery time, can you correlate that there is now, if you can reduce the batch size, you can reduce, I mean, I'm giving a very simple use case here. If you reduce the batch size, you can reduce the order to delivery time. If you have a supportive supplier ecosystem, which is ready to supply you every day on demand, can you, and if you reduce your batch size, can you reduce your order to delivery time?
Yeah.
It may not come down to a day, but it can, through an iterative process, can that come down?
Yes, definitely it can come down.
Wonderful. Sir, when you reduce your batch size, and if you have to increase your manufacturing throughput, this means that the number of batches has to increase?
Yeah.
In normal situation, yes.
Simple math, right? And if you have to increase your batches, number of batches, so you reduce your batch size and you want to increase your manufacturing throughput, this means automatically your number of batches has to increase, right? And if your number of batches goes up, what happens? The changeovers increase. So unless you reduce your set of time, your machine equipment availability will be impacted. Yes?
Yeah.
I'll repeat, if you reduce your batch size to even maintain your current throughput levels, you will have to increase your number of batches. And if you have to increase your throughput, your number of batches has to grow even more, because we are reducing our batch size to reduce our order to delivery time. And we are reducing our order to delivery time to increase the order booking so that we have more orders. And if we have more orders, then we have to increase our throughput. And if we have to increase our throughput, our number of batches have to go up. And if our number of batches have to go up, then there will be more of setup time required. So unless you reduce your setup time, your equipment will not be available for production. The touch time, it will not be available. Your touch time will go down even further. So the only way out is you have to reduce your setup time. Am I making sense so far? Am I able to explain the circular dependency of this strategy now?
Your mic,
Yes.
Rajiv, your mic. I can see Rajiv's mic. Ah, yes.
Yes, yes. I can definitely see this circular dependency and improvement will be there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So with this said, now I come to the fourth box, enhance thought leadership, increase constraint shifts. And there I'll again request Shishir to step in and explain the concept of constraints, and with constraints, the concept of constraint shifts. Shishir, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So what we are saying right now is that the company, if it has to keep growing, it has to keep putting in a process of ongoing improvement. Now, your current throughput is limited by your current constraint. Now, the company should think through what they can do and move the constraint to a different place. In the sense, elevate the constraint so that the throughput goes up. One can begin by saying that market is my constraint as of now. But market is usually a constraint which is out of your control. So it is very likely that you should be able to bring in that constraint. That means translate your market constraint to a physical constraint or another constraint within the premises of the company. This is an example of constraint shift. Now, once the constraint shifts from market to within your factory, now you know that you have a better control on it. And this is what we are saying, that the company should be able to constantly move the constraint to a location where it can manage the constraint very well to keep impacting the increase in throughput. Now, how quickly you move from one to second and how one manages the constraint is what we are saying about thought leadership. Now, it can happen that you move the constraint inside and throughput goes up, and now you realize that you don't have a factory constraint or no constraint within your factory, but a supplier has become a constraint. How you deal with this supplier? Do you invest in the supplier, or you go and work along with the supplier to get rid of the constraint so the constraint comes back within your factory? Is another example of constraint shift. So we are saying that how quickly a company is able to identify the constraint and move the constraint to a higher level or elevate the constraint is attributed to the capability the company has. Now, another thing happens, like for example, machine A is your constraint as of today. So your company policies revolve around machine A. Make sure that it is not idle, make sure it is properly manned, and 1 hour lost at the machine is an hour lost for the company. So many things come up. But in all this philosophy, we refer to machine A. Now, if after some elevation, the constraint has moved to machine B, how quickly does a company is able to align itself to the new constraint is also part of the thought leadership we're talking about. If these shifts do not happen, the company actually very quickly reaches a rate of diminishing return. That means what we expected the throughput to rise year on year very quickly starts plateauing. So constraint shift is directly tied up to the rate of increase of throughput that the company can achieve. If the thought leadership doesn't exist, very quickly we would see the company starts losing the momentum it had gained by the first constraint that it broke. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Shishir. And with this, I move to the summary of what we have talked about. Just want to have your attention towards the right of the screen. Increased throughput. We have been talking about increasing throughput, and the basic, all that we are trying to say here, gentlemen, is move inventory quickly through production. This is the crux of whatever we have talked today. Move inventory quickly through production. That is how you increase throughput in one line. And what do? Factory IO tracks load on every equipment in the factory to identify production constraint. She should talk in detail about the production constraint. And how does anybody identify the production constraint? By looking for the large accumulations of work in process on the plant floor. Once you have identified the production constraint, what do? You got to go and isolate the reasons for the constraint. And what could be the reasons for the constraint? Equipment failure, or time lost in equipment setup, or equipment is idling, or the equipment has slowed down, or the work product of the equipment is defective. And once you have identified this, you got to be creating insights for scheduling changes and equipment maintenance. We're just presenting such a complicated thing in a way that it seems like a piece of cake. But yeah, I mean, essentially, fundamentally speaking, this is what it is to increase manufacturing throughput. Now, moving forward, people ask us again and again, well, so how is what we are talking different from what is already there in ERP? And that brings me down to this topic on dynamic scheduling beyond ERP. What manufacturers need to do is continually evaluate planned versus actual. They need to assess continually the gap between what was received, what was decided as a production plan versus what is happening actually on the production floor. We all know that the two are different. The two are always different. While ERP eliminated production losses due to raw material stock out, Factory IO substantially increases equipment utilization. And this brings me to the left side of the presentation in terms of decision support in real time. What manufacturers need to do is create a network of fully connected equipment for greater visibility and actionable insights presented in real time. This is the critical piece that is missing currently. The reason, excuse me for saying this, but I have Shishir's approval to say this. With all the concepts of lean and TOC, which have existed, I mean, I don't know since when Shishir will say, since when lean has existed, but he has already told me that TOC has existed since 1983, since the time I graduated. So my entire career, TOC has existed. But in my entire career, I have not seen any substantial change happening. I mean, I have seen a remarkable change in telecommunication. When Tatkal used to cost, Tatkal telephone would cost 40,000 rupees, when the salary of 8,000 rupees was considered to be very, I mean, was the cabinet secretary's salary. Okay, so telecom today has come a long way. Retail today has come a long way. But manufacturing, I'm sure manufacturing has also come a long way. But that is something where we still need to make substantial changes. And the reason why all these concepts of lean and TOC are having limited impact on the manufacturing industry is because we are not able to have machines connected and collecting data holistically. What is currently happening is that monitoring, data collection, and reaction is based on manual inputs, paper trails, experience, observations, and gut instinct. The data, when it can be obtained, is quickly outdated and often siloed. With cloud-based computing and analytics, manufacturers can stream data directly from the equipment and can deliver actionable insights to their manufacturers, operators, and technicians. Gentlemen, that's where I rest my case.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much for your nice presentation. I just have one small doubt. Probably all this whatever factors you are saying. Have you validated with something like research? Any research paper available? Like this much influence on final business outcome, or so many levers you are giving to manufacturing decision makers. So how much impacts? Which one impacting what? Is any analysis is done by you? Any pilot project is done, or is it just subjective estimations?
So, Raju, to respond to your question, we do not have any such numbers from India, but globally, companies which have implemented such systems, and this is not a new concept. There are companies globally which have implemented this. They have achieved 80% reduction in time to decisions.
Yeah.
This is published data that we are sharing with you.
Okay.
And companies have achieved 30% increase in throughput.
Okay.
On an average.
Any example of which type of industry this data belongs to?
Automotive.
Automotive.
Discrete manufacturing who are made to order and made to forecast.
Not for a process industry, correct?
Not for?
We do not have the data. We did not look for it. I'm sure there is, not sure. We know for sure that similar initiative is going in pharma. Pharma industry is way ahead. They have even named it as Pharma 4.0. So globally, the Industry 4.0 initiative in pharma has been given the name of Pharma 4.0.
Okay.
Automotive industry, which is also far ahead globally in implementation of Industry 4.0, they have not even they have not given themselves a separate name. But pharma has given themselves a separate name as Pharma 4.0.
Fantastic. Okay, in a given condition like Indian scenario, there are many behavior related things. Have you considered those things? Because you can give best platform, but there are many issues related to behavior related, like entrepreneur related, skill related. Have you taken those into consideration? The outcome is connected to that, because this adaptability is finally, how much they understand, how much they adopt, how they think, all this matters. This is not quantified in a technology platforms. They think everything is the best, in the world. Whatever applicable in US, Europe, it is applicable to India. But have you considered the local conditions?
So Raju, there are a few things. There were many questions in your simple question. So I'll take each of those multiple questions one by one. So what we are doing is, so we went to a big spectrum of manufacturers, starting from 1 crore annual turnover to 1,000 crores annual turnover. And we found that anybody who is less, so this is the gating criteria for this strategy that we established. Number one, the manufacturer needs to have already implemented ERP.
Hmm.
ERP has been around for more than 30 years.
Okay.
So a manufacturer who has not even adopted ERP,
Yeah.
we are not even we are just having coffee with them.
Hmm.
We are just friends. We are not presenting them this strategy at all.
Okay.
It does not make sense.
Okay.
Number two gating criteria is, again, PLCs and CNCs, more so PLCs have been around for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
So any company any manufacturer which is still, I mean, there are a host of manufacturers, export-oriented units in Muradabad, exporting utensils.
Yeah.
They are not the case. They are not ready for this strategy. This strategy makes no sense for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Because for them, all their manufacturing is manual.
Yeah.
So this is not a same size fits all.
Okay.
Unless the manufacturing company has 70 to 80% of their equipment already hooked to PLC.
Okay.
We are not even presenting to them this strategy. It makes no sense.
Okay.
So now with this said, with this gating criteria, this strategy makes sense to only those manufacturers who have already invested in their digital strategy, in their own digital strategy, by way of migrating towards PLCs,
Okay.
factory automation,
Okay.
and business automation, IT implementation.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. That's I think criteria. Minimum they should have a ERP, and then you can add on. This option is add on ERP, correct?
That is correct.
Now, one more thing I'll say here, Raju. When we say that we are collecting data and giving it to you, we are not saying that we are teaching you statistical process control. Now, most of the manufacturing companies have been using one or the other form of good manufacturing practices, right? Lean or something or the other. Everybody at least claims that they're using. We have yet to find somebody who does not, who says, listen here, I'm still doing it the old way and it doesn't matter. No, everybody has an improvement initiative. Everybody will drop in some quality management initiatives. Now, we see that there are 200 concepts of lean, but only 3 are being talked about.
Okay.
And they are, let us say, preventive maintenance, or let's say TPM. We're talking about 5S, and maximum we can talk about plant layout. Okay. Now, when we go down and talk to consultants, what is limiting you from making use of all the other tools available to you? The one common answer is data.
Data is missing.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, when we are saying that when there is no sanctity of data, so when a consultant comes in, he starts with collecting data.
Yeah.
Right? He will start collecting data. Okay, so much of time was lost in production, so much of time was lost in breakdown, and then he'll pull out the breakdown data, analyze it, and then start doing the total productive maintenance program.
Yeah.
Right? So now what we are saying, Raju, is that, or for everybody, what we are saying is, if this data is the backbone on which all the initiatives are based,
Yeah.
okay, this is still historic analysis, right?
Yeah.
What happens if you get this data real time and you are able to take a corrective measure? Now I'll give example. Very often we do sampling or we do statistical process control.
Yeah.
The aim is to understand how was the behavior of the machine during production, right?
Yeah.
To see whether the mean shifted or was the setting moved.
Yeah.
Now just imagine if you're able to get the setting data only from the PLC.
Yeah.
That the machine has not moved from the setting you started off with.
Yeah.
What is your confidence in inspection now? Much higher.
Yeah.
So we are not saying that we are reinventing the wheel or we are giving a great concept.
Yeah.
So when we said this is a digital strategy, what we meant was all the data you require to currently run your operation comes to you.
Yeah.
digitally. However, there are many aspects of the data which can be converted into a decision support system that will come to you also.
Okay.
Naturally, you take out data and say, "Hey, aap kar lo," and if you know that this is what the person needs, it can be converted into decision support.
Okay.
What decisions you're going to take is up to you. So, with the previous practices of introducing, let us say, Toyota production system in the Indian environment, that was a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
There, yeah. So there, the behavior was paramount.
Yeah.
Will the worker clean the machine? Will the worker like to do Kaizen? Right? No, I can understand that there the fight was very high towards changing the behaviors. Now, I'm slightly harsh on it, but excuse me for being harsh. When everybody talks about behavior, I said, what is the content of labor in today's manufacturing?
Okay.
Right?
Okay,
So,
yes, Shishir.
yes,
This was. Yeah, in your model, we have not taken into the risk is the factor. Risk is not adopted in your model.
yes. Ranga sir,
Uh,
what we are essentially putting here is operation management approach.
yeah, that is good. But you see, the supply chain is disturbed a lot.
Yes.
So we have to put the risk factor also in this model. Then it will be better. This is my suggestion.
No, sir. I will tell you because we were talking at the strategy level.
Uh,
You are
uh,
in the execution level. Let me come down to a simple thing called increase inventory turns.
yes.
There are two ways of increasing turns. One is supply disruption.
Yes.
So when there's a supply disruption, there's no inventory to be brought inside.
Yeah, there
Okay.
is no there is no inventory at all.
So even if you have 5 crores of inventory and you have not bought any inventory, the inventory turn will go. Okay.
Yes.
So, however, one of the necessary conditions for inventory turn is you have to keep buying.
Mm.
Right? Now,
Yes.
here there are many tools right now, and I'm sure all of you would know there's something called demand consumption based inventory replenishment. It's another inventory replenishment method which is now being used very heavily by the retail outlets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, how do you, so I'll break it down. Now, let's say you are buying 50 components, 50 raw material. All 50 raw material do not have the same lead time. Okay, sir?
Yes. Different lead time.
Now, yeah.
Mm.
Now, your management system is based on an average lead time.
Yeah.
So now we are saying that if we give you the ability to view every component individually, okay, and we tell you that these are your 3 very high risk items.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the monitoring of those high risk items is much faster, much better. So you can actually say what is on order, what is going to come, what is not going to come, where it is. All that thing can be inputted inside. Okay. So the supply side risk, I'm not talking about new vendor development. I'm just talking about a simple vendor. So now we are also saying here that we would like to increase availability while reducing inventory. Please watch my word. With this approach, you can increase availability while reducing the inventory. Now, that will tell you when to react with what. For example, now you say, how does it run? No inventory management system, ordering and reordering system right now is self-adjusting. That means if the consumption rate is gone up, the quantity of ordering should go up depending on the time it takes to come. Now, the models that we are going to install are extremely modern models which actually self-adjust to give you a forewarning. Okay. Now, these models one can read everywhere. It is not my intellectual property. It is available in the market. And they have arrived, they have been put into place because the previous one was causing disruption. So we are not right now in this strategy telling you how to implement or what problem do you have, what the solution to the problem is. We will go to that a bit later. But what we are saying here is, if we give you a connected machine, if we give you data on real time, you will be able to take far better corrective actions. Now, I'll quote another example. We were planning monthly. And when we were planning monthly before, the inventory levels were very high. And all the dispatches used to take place towards the end of the month between, let us say, if the company is very good from the 18th, if the company is normal from the 20th to 30th, right? We all suffered this. And when the company started planning weekly, this thing, the same effect was being seen end of the week. But now the you can say the throughput or the dispatches got evened out on 4 different weeks. So there are things that if you can do faster, you are able to do better. So instead of weekly planning, you can do monthly planning, you can do weekly planning. And now just imagine if we allow you or give you the input to take corrective decision on an hourly basis.
Yes.
And this is where we see that all the idling time of the machine, which currently goes unnoticed, will be better captured, right? So this is on the, I'm not going down deep to how you can take care of the risk that we can come to later. Okay. This, I just wanted to satisfy you that what you see on the top of the box, there are multiple layers, and we will be able to bring such good practices because we need digital to do it. You need to react to it in minutes, not in days. And hence, all the concepts that we were not able to implement, we'll be able to implement faster.
So
How they are connected with the inter machines and the process, how they will be interconnected?
Urvesh, how are we going to pull out data? Can we, I think he's asking about, sir, correct me if I'm wrong before I explain it to Urvesh. Now, what I'm hearing from Mr. Ranga Rao is, we have talked in words. Now you tell me how will the digital signal be pulled out from the machine into the software, sir? Is that okay?
Yes, yes. Yes. How to signal the process, that is.
So typically, the entire technology, the entire engineering on the shop floor has 4 levels.
Yes, sir.
One is called the level 0. That is your machine hardware, your lathe, your cutting machines, all the mechanical machines. That is what we classify as level 0. Now, within these machines, there is something what we call as level 1, the transducers. There are sensors in there, there are actuators in there, which are together all called transducers. So, and these sensors are all connected to the PLCs through hardwires, cables. So if you will look at the plant floor, you will see some racks mounted there. I mean, there are different configurations. There are machines which have one-on-one PLCs. And then there are some production lines which have multiple machines, all their sensors and actuators connected to one single PLC. So it depends on the plant configuration, whether it is a standalone machine having each having their own PLC, or there is a production line arrangement where multiple machines have a common PLC to control the entire production line. So all of this gets into a PLC. PLC by definition is programmable logic controller. It's a computer for all practical purposes, leaving aside all the fancy name, be it a CNC or be it a PLC, it's a computer. And in the industrial world, they are just called controllers. So you have controllers. I mean, even a boiler has a flow meter, a temperature meter. There could be, depending on how sophisticated the boiler is and that instrumentation is, it could be the more sophisticated boilers now have controllers in there. And these controllers are nothing but computers, microchips, like your phone has. There used to be earlier simple phones, feature phones, and now they are smartphones. So all these smartphones have computer chips inside them. So likewise, all of this instrumentation for many years now, all of them have those controllers, at least for 10, 15 years, if not longer. So if you have a controller, there has to be a memory. So what happens is in each of these controllers or memory, they keep, I mean, these controllers or these PLCs have data stored there. Now, what is the limitation? that their storage is small. They are able to keep the data for a few days, and then that memory gets overwritten. So what is happening in the manufacturing world is that data, there's a huge amount of data that manufacturing units are generating every single moment. And in a few days, it gets overwritten. So you lose all the history.
Yes.
So what we are doing is, as computer engineers that we are, many of us, we are pulling all of that data and saving it on the cloud, where we have unlimited, very huge amount of memory. And now, so we are not, before it gets overwritten in the PLC, we pull it out through different technologies. I mean, I can name them. There's some PLCs are based on Modbus, some are based on Profibus, some are based on OPC UA. So each of them have a different, depending on what the manufacturer has chosen as a protocol, they use that protocol. And we know all of these protocols. So we have written the interfaces for those protocols, and we pull that data out and save it on the cloud. And then our own algorithms process the data to give you these insights.
Yeah, there are
Okay, sir.
there are many companies now, what they do, the existing setup only, they create they bridge the gap. They collect the data, they process it, and they put on a cloud and use that for analytics. There are many companies are doing that. So you can take advantage of that, and you can go ahead with the thing. There is no need to worry about what condition company is there, what type of machine they use, and all. That is not a big issue nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah, there are many companies I have seen recently. They do exclusively connection, linking all the systems in the factory. They do. They have so from there onwards, you can take up this, decision making process. You can integrate. Actually, they can help you. In a whatever condition you give, they quickly they set up the thing, data collection and visualization. Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
There
So
are many companies are there.
this model is a subscription model monthly, or it's like one-time investment?
We offer it on subscription and on success.
Okay. And how much is the implementation time for a mid-level company?
We typically get into, Rajiv, we typically get into a 3-year contract.
3 years.
So it's not that the implementation time takes 3 years.
No, that's okay. Means implementation can be 1 month, 2 months, then 3 years contract up to monthly subscription.
Yes, three years in the sense that, see, manufacturing unit is anyways continuing, right?
Right.
You understand that if somebody has 200 machines, they're not going to give us all the 200 on day one.
Right.
They will first give us maybe 10%, then they'll give us another 40%, and then the rest.
Definitely.
So we're looking at a long-term relationship where we do not come and disrupt. It's not like this is our app, apply this, and then we are done. No, we are there to ensure and see through that you achieve 20 to 30 and possibly 40%. We claim that you should be able to get somewhere between 20 to 40% increase.
Definitely. I have experience working with automobile industry for 10 years. And more in cost, and because I am a cost accountant, so we were understanding the processes, and WIP is the main area where we do the major savings. So I can appreciate that data is the most important thing. So we keep on giving formats to them, but we never get data to decide. Whatever we do is based on the observations, and the improvement in the processes based on observations, not based on the data.
So you can relate to every word that we say here, gut feel and all of that stuff.
Definitely. It's very useful.
Okay.
And have you tried in pharma, sir, this model?
Well, we are looking for beta companies who would want to come with us.
Okay, sir.
And again, as I was explaining before, we do not charge anything upfront. Our entire pricing model is based on success. If you do ourselves, so you sign a MOU today, we come in, We start implementing things in negotiating with you. And then once it is implemented, if you see value, you start the subscription. And then when we achieve, say, 20% or 10% performance, throughput improvement, we start taking a success fee from you. So there's no upfront cost that we talk about.
And you are based in Karnataka?
Well, we are just based all over the country, Shishir, across the world. Shishir lives in Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay.
I live in Gurgaon.
Okay. I also live in Gurgaon. We are nearby.
Home in Bangalore.
I also stay in Gurgaon.
Oh, you are in Gurgaon, Raji?
Yes, Sector 56.
I cannot even say let's meet over the weekend.
Definitely.
Okay, one more thing. I just I request, if somebody wants to take up this, is any assessment is required, a preliminary assessment, some score you give, okay, you are eligible, your score is 0 to 100, something where you stand, on that basis you can suggest this implementation thing. What is how you generally choose? Is there any preliminary assessment for a company on a digital path?
Very simple. They need to have an ERP, number one. Very simple. No scoring, nothing. They need to have an ERP, number one. So when we talk and if we figure out that they do not have a working ERP, we are polite after that. We're no longer talking business. We just become polite. We do have sport talk. We talk about the weather. We talk about politics, but we don't talk about Industry 4.0.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
And when we visit the plant, we like to take a walk of the plant, typically, to understand their manufacturing process. So that's again our way of quickly assessing how much of their dependence is on PLC. What we are essentially assessing, Raju, informally, is whether the owners of the manufacturing company, are they digitally inclined or they still living in the 1980s?
Okay, digital readiness.
Correct.
That's a great.
Okay,
so,
sir.
Fantastic,
sir. Want to teach them digital.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
gentlemen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Raju.
Lot of effort you put. I think we will come back once again, connect to sample. If you want to do some sample testing.
Well, we would definitely want to present to you guys. One of you raised this point about risk, and I wanted to share this. That after this, we have what we call the manufacturing decisions framework.
Yes.
Right.
So this is at the strategy
Yes,
level.
sir.
And some of what we're talking about will be addressed.
Sir, I want to take a photograph of this.
Sir, we will send it to you. Don't worry, we will send it across.
Okay, you share me the PPT. You share me the PPT, no problem.
Is this available in the website, this factory.io?
Raju, we do not yet have a website.
Was it Raji or somebody else?
No, this is Tapas here.
Tapas.
Okay, Tapas. How are you, sir? Tapas, sir, you joined this.
Yeah, I joined a little late. I got caught up.
Okay.
But it was
sir.
quite enlightening. Good.
Okay.
Good
Okay. Good presentation, sir.
question.
Thank you, Umesh and Shrishit, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Very.
Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Email me, so I have his email and I can send it to you.
Yeah, we will share the details, all the details within our.
Yes.
And further, anything you need, any help from sample, conducting, speaking to some more CEOs, manufacturing, we will be having regularly these meetings. You can join some of those meetings. And once the lockdown is over, we will be doing a physical interaction with the monthly meetings. So that also you can join from wherever you are, through Zoom you can present.
Sounds good.
So thank you so much for your time. And
thank you, Raju. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.